Thanks for joining me on another episode of Why Not Go, the channel dedicated to rock and roll. I'm Maggie, and I appreciate everyone liking the videos and commenting. I love the comments. Hope everyone had a nice Merry Christmas. I'm doing videos right now a couple times a month, every 2 weeks. I might be more frequent in the new year. I don't know. I'm trying to line up some interviews, some cool rock and roll interviews. And on that note, if anyone is someone who has a cool rock and roll story, especially from the 70s or early punk or the 80s, please reach out to me if you'd like to be interviewed, or you know someone who would like to be interviewed. This channel is dedicated to rock and roll, and some people might think, what does that have to do with Microsoft? Well, it kind of does have something to do with Microsoft, the software we all have on our computers. Because one of the founders of Microsoft, I met him. I went to a party at his house, and it was not what I expected. And he's a great lover of rock and roll. And this video is not about, hey, I met somebody really rich. It's actually, if I have a message, it's actually quite the opposite of that. Most people, when they think of Microsoft, they think of Bill Gates. But it was started by two people. It was started by Paul Allen and Bill Gates. And they were childhood friends. They went to the same high school together. And I'll show a photo here where the photo is from 1970, and they look so smart and cute and young. And Paul Allen, he was born in 1953, so he would have been 17 at this time. And Bill Gates would have been, he was born in 1955, he would have been 15. And I love this photo. So they were, I'll just give you a little backstory on Paul Allen, and then I'll get into when I met him. He's a very interesting guy. He, as I said, he was childhood friends with Bill Gates. They went to the same high school together. And then he went on to go to college, Washington State University, but he dropped out after a couple years. And he was always interested in computers and programming, and as was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates went to Harvard, and it was Paul Allen who convinced Bill Gates to drop out of college. They were both college dropouts. It's kind of unbelievable. And he wanted to form a computer company with his childhood friend Bill Gates. And they did this in 1975. They were still very, very young men. And Paul Allen actually named the company Micro for microcomputer, because he had the foresight to predict that we would all have computers in our homes, which was kind of like unheard of in those times. And soft for software. So it was named Microsoft for the idea of software for the new microcomputer. And they supplied software to IBM, the first DOS system. I'm old enough to remember DOS. It was like the early Atari computers or video games. It was very primitive, and for me, very hard to use. And then they went on to, of course, develop lots of things and develop Windows, which I think came out in the 90s. I remember I was working at the Astoria, and I remember taking the bus back home to Kilburn. It was during the day. I think it was an all-night club that night. And there was all these people lined up around Tottenham Court Road to go to, I don't know, it was some kind of store, HMV or Virgin Megastore, and they were lining up for Windows, and this was in the 90s. And I didn't have a computer in the 90s, but I guess some people did. And I just remember looking out the bus thinking, what are people lining up for Windows? Like, what is Windows? Little did I know that a few years later I would meet the man who developed Windows. Yeah, so Windows really changed everything for Microsoft. But Paul Allen had to step away from the day-to-day running for Microsoft in 1983. He came down with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. And I guess he remained vice chairman, but Bill Gates kind of took over the company or ran the company more on a day-to-day basis in 1983. And Paul Allen, he passed away in 2018 from cancer, from the side effects of cancer. It was in remission, and then he came down with cancer again, I believe, in 2009. So he had health issues his whole life, and he passed away in 2018 at the age of 65. That was about 10 years after I met him. I met him around 2008. I would have been about 50. He was 55. But yeah, he started Microsoft with Bill Gates, and I don't know if a lot of people know about Paul Allen. I mean, he lived a fabulous life. He did have some tension with Bill Gates. I think Bill Gates tried to dilute his shares because Bill Gates felt like he was doing more of the work for Microsoft than Paul Allen was. He and Jeff Ballmer, I guess, tried to oust him or get rid of his shares, but Paul Allen, I think he retained 30 or 40% ownership of Microsoft through his life. And I'll show a picture here of Bill Gates and Paul Allen. I think the picture on the left is probably from around 1980, and the picture on the right is about 20 years later. But I guess they were friends at the end of Paul Allen's life. But yeah, he lived a fabulous life. He had a yacht that was, I think, worth $500 million. I think it was like one of the biggest yachts in the world. And he used to entertain Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie when they were together. He started all kinds of companies, an entertainment company, and donated billions of his, much like Bill Gates, he donated billions of dollars to charity. When he died, he had about $21 billion to his name, and I thought it would have been more, but I'm sure it was because he had already given away so much to charity. And yes, Paul Allen, he loved rock and roll. And in fact, he bought Jimi Hendrix's guitar from Woodstock. He bought that, I think, in 1998 for, I've read a couple places, $750,000, then I read another place, $2 million. So I don't know exactly how much he paid. And the wonderful thing about it is he put it in his museum. I'll show a picture here. It's in Seattle, and he and his sister opened this museum, I think in 2000. And it's called the Museum of Pop Culture, and that's where that Jimi Hendrix guitar is located, probably with a lot of other Jimi Hendrix memorabilia and rock and roll memorabilia. One day I'd like to see it. They call it Mopop in Seattle. So he loved the arts, and he had all kinds of interests. So yeah, how did I meet someone like this? It's kind of a funny story. And Paul Allen, also with his wealth, he loved sports, and he bought the Seattle Seahawks and also the Portland Trail Blazers, the NBA team. And I remember when Paul Allen passed away, the quarterback, Russell Wilson, at the time, quarterback of the Seahawks, he was crying on camera. So I think he was well liked by the players. So what a life he led. And every day when I open my computer, I think, yeah, that was Microsoft. I met that guy. So how did I meet Paul Allen? Well, LA is like one of those places where everybody kind of knows somebody. I don't care if you're a teacher or a plumber. No matter what your occupation, I was working in real estate at the time. Even if you don't know anyone famous, chances are a friend of yours knows someone famous, or a friend of a friend definitely knows someone famous. That's just the way it is. Everybody knows somebody in a show or something like that. Joe had a friend who checked. He worked at a bar and he checked people's IDs before they came in. You know, the kind of person you think, oh, he probably doesn't know anybody. And he was good friends with Kiefer Sutherland, the actor Kiefer Sutherland, who also loved rock and roll. A lot, you know, he's kind of similar to Johnny Depp. I think his passion is rock and roll, probably more than acting. So I was sitting at home one day. I was already home from work. It was around 5 or 6 o'clock, and I was by myself. This before I met Joe. As I said, it was around 2008, give or take a year. And a friend of mine called me up, and she said, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Nothing." So I was, probably going to watch a Seinfeld rerun. And my friend said, "Do you want to go to a party at Paul Allen's house in Beverly Hills?" And I said, "Yes." Yes, yes. And I remember I asked, I said, "Well, doesn't your husband want to go?" And she said, "No." She said he'd like to go, but he thinks it would be a good place for me to network because there'll be some probably important people there. It's not every day you go to a party at a multi-billionaire's house. And so she thought she would be able to network better if she had a girlfriend next to her, not a husband. So I said, "Sure, I'll, uh, I'll be your plus one. No, no problem." And the reason why she was asked to go to his house is because, again, as I said, a friend of a friend. Everybody kind of knows somebody in LA. There was a musician at a restaurant called Trader Vic's. We both love tiki culture, and he was a musician that played kind of bossa nova music with a band. In the corner, kind of band that most diners, people dining there probably ignore. And he must have been a session player, and he had contacts with Paul Allen. I guess when Paul Allen used to come to L.A., I don't think it was his main residence. He would sometimes kind of organize last minute jam sessions, and I don't remember. He was such a nice guy, and I don't remember his name or what he played. I think he played bass, but I'm not sure. And so he called up my friend, who was a singer as well as an actress, and he thought that maybe she could do a little singing. Not so much when Paul Allen was going to be jamming, because he was going to do more rock and roll, but maybe later in the evening they'd play some bossa nova or something like that. That she was that was more her genre. So that's why she got the call. Just a friend of a friend. And so I said, "Sure." And we drove over there. Maybe it's near Steve Jones' house. I don't know. It was off of Sunset Boulevard, north of Sunset Boulevard. And we're making jokes in the car. I remember we're saying stuff like, "Oh my God, wouldn't it be funny if we said something like, we're having trouble with our computer, Paul. Maybe you come over and fix it. I mean, you are Microsoft." We're just making jokes like that. And I didn't even know if I was going to meet him. And so we get there, and I learned when he passed away, the house was sold for 56 million. So it must have been a really nice house, because that's a big price even for Beverly Hills. And but everything was very dark. Beverly Hills, once you get up in the hills, it's very dark. You can't even tell if houses are big or small. And there was no valet parking. We just pulled up. I think it was a cul-de-sac, and there was a few cars out front. And I remember there was a guy, he was sitting there on a stool, and he had the guest list. And I still remember this. He had a tablet, and not a paper guest list. I remember thinking, "Oh my God, I've never, I don't think you saw tablets as much as you do today." And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's interesting. He doesn't have a paper guest list." And then I thought, well, of course, it's a Microsoft party. They're not going to have a guest list on paper. And so he told us to go past the garage, and it was the cleanest looking garage I've ever seen. It had about 6 fancy cars in it. And he said, you go past there was a courtyard. It was an old Spanish, it was like a 20 Spanish. Again, I didn't think it looked that big. It looked one story, but it must have been if it sold for 56 million. And we walked through the courtyard, and then he said, you take a glass elevator. It's like something out of James Bond. You take this glass elevator that takes you down sort of the hillside to his recording studio, jam area. And so that's what we did. And again, it was very dark. We're in this glass elevator going down the mountain, and then it opens up, and his recording studio, it was a recording, as you walk in, it was sort of like a small club. There was a stage on one side, a little bar on the other side, kind of a long room, and then on one side it was a recording studio, and I peeked in, and it looked really nice, really beautiful and big. It was just kind of a glass wall there. And then on the opposite side of the room was another glass wall that looked out to a patio that had views of the hills, the hillside in Beverly Hills below. So it was like a small club on the side of the mountain there. And so and I remember I thought I was going to be underdressed because I wore a leopard print coat that I got at a thrift store or a garage, I think it was a garage sale for like $10. And I thought, oh, I'm probably going to be underdressed. It's probably going to be full of Wall Street types and women that look like super glamorous. And I couldn't have been more wrong. It wasn't like that at all. It was a very small group of people, maybe 40 or 50. And I think they were all just working musicians. Most of them were younger than me. As I said, I was about 50 at the time. I'd say most people were maybe in their 30s and 40s, mostly guys. And everyone was real casual. They just looked like casual musicians in leather jackets and jeans and, tennis shoes, whatever. I didn't see anybody famous there. I didn't see like Dave Grohl or somebody like that, a Flea. I didn't look at everybody's face, but I didn't see anybody famous. It just seemed like, just musicians. It was like a musician's party or jam session. And I got a drink at the bar, and I remember they were serving beer and champagne. And it's funny the things that you remember. They serve champagne in a nice flute with the raspberry floating on the top. And I thought at the time, oh, that's neat, a raspberry floating on the top. It just makes it look festive. And I made a note to myself, I want to do that next time I have a party with champagne. I want to serve it with the raspberry floating on top. So anyway, you just remember these odd things. But it was, I can't emphasize enough how casual the crowd was. Just very, you could be in a bar in East Hollywood. It was just, it looked just like average, kind of rock and roll-ish people, and it was great. And then we saw the guy from that I had met him at Trader Vic's, super nice guy, and we chatted with him. And then I remember the band started up, and Paul Allen came on stage. So yeah, then the musicians came up, and I wasn't even sure what Paul Allen looked like, and he was casual, but he was wearing a suit, not buttoned up, just kind of loose with the shirt. And the first thing I noticed was he could really sing and really play guitar. I mean, I thought he was like, wow, like I'm not a guitar expert, but I could tell that he really, he played with a real passion. And the music was great. I think it was mostly covers that they played. I think they played for about 45 minutes, and he sang as well. And he had a good voice, as I remember that very well. And I think they did mostly covers. Could have done originals, but I'm not sure. And I didn't even know that he was a musician. I was really impressed. And and they played. It was kind of straightforward rock and roll, kind of Tom Petty ish. A lot of the songs were kind of bluesy as well. and it was a good show. It was great. I mean, there, like I said, it wasn't that many people there, and there was even less people when the band came on stage because a lot of the people that were milling around were in the band, and so they played for about 40 maybe 45 minutes or so, and we just had so much fun. I remember my friend and I we were just like laughing, and it was so unexpected. I thought I was going to be home watching TV, and here I am in Beverly Hills at a multi-billionaire's house, Mr. Microsoft. And I remember one time my friend said to me, talk, I don't know, maybe it was rude, but she said, "Talk about Revenge of the Nerds." And I started laughing. I said, "Yeah," I said, "he and Bill Gates probably, I don't know, they probably had trouble getting dates in high school, and look at them now." It's like incredible. But yeah, it was just it was great. It was very very casual. And after they finished playing, the musician who had invited my friend, he came over and started chatting with us. And then about 5 minutes later, Paul Allen came over, and he was so, and I still remember this. He was so nice, and I got the feeling he was kind of shy, but very friendly. And he said, "Hi, I'm Paul." He said, "Thank you for coming." And I said something like, "Sure, it's my pleasure." And we shook hands. And then he said, and then I said, "Boy," I said, "you are a really good guitar player." I mean, wow, that was something. And then he kind of laughed and he said, "Yeah," he said, I've been playing for a while." And then he said, "Always remember this." He said, "I've always wanted to be in a band." And that just it still strikes me today, how I don't know, it just hit me. I thought, here's this guy that has everything, a life beyond anyone's dreams, and I don't know, it sounded like he kind of had an unfulfilled dream. He really wanted to be a rock and roller. I think that was probably his passion, and not so much software anymore. Uh, and uh, and then I said, "Well," I said, "you're doing it now, and you sound great." And then he said something like, "Yeah," he said, "I am." He said, "I'm having fun," uh, which I kind of took to mean that he's kind of better late than never kind of thing. And that was the gist of the conversation that I remembered. And then the musician, the friend, that was a friend of ours, he started talking to Paul Allen. They were talking about the songs that they did. And I remember asking if they did some original songs, because they did some covers that I didn't know what they were. And so I thought maybe there were originals. And I think they did have some originals, but I'm not sure. At that point, the conversation just kind of got talking about music and different people talking. There could have been more that was said, but the thing that struck out to me was when he said, "I've always wanted to be in a band." So that was my conversation with him. He after that he said, "Thanks again," and walked off. Classy guy. I'm sure he said thanks for coming to everybody there. Uh, and then we were chatting with I think a couple of musicians in the band at one point. And then after about I think about I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so, the band came back on stage, but not with Paul Allen. He was kind of done for the night. And I think I wasn't like watching him or anything, but I think at that point he was gone. I think he went back up the glass elevator on the side of the mountain back up to his house. And then it was a great night though, and the band played different stuff. I don't think my friend ended up singing though, but we had a great time, just a great time, and it just shows you just the power of rock and roll. I mean, here's a guy that had everything, and I really do feel that like the way he played on stage with such joy and passion. I think that was his true passion, and he probably knew. He's Paul Allen. He's a multi-billionaire. He can't all of a sudden, just do rock and roll full time. He's got so many other things that he's doing with his charities and different companies, and God knows what kind of life he had. But and then after that, I said to my friend, they were after the band had played another set without Paul Allen. We were there chatting, just the two of us, and I said to my friend, I said, you came here to network. You got to go out there and network. But it was funny. She told me later that there was really no one to network with because there wasn't really anybody important there, which made me like Paul Allen even more. As I said, I thought it was going to be full of famous people or I don't know, Wall Street people, and I think the party really was just average, everyday working musicians. That's who he wanted to hang out with, and I love that. So, but she did go out and talk to other people, and at that point I was by myself, and I remember I took another glass of champagne with the raspberry floating on top, and I went out to the patio, just an open patio, beautiful. Maybe there was a couple of people sitting in chairs, but I was basically by myself looking at the lights below, and I just thought, wow, this is a man who has everything, and his passion is rock and roll. Yeah, and as I stood there with my champagne, gazing out at the lights below of the canyon in Beverly Hills, I thought, wow, I said, here's a man who has everything, but he still has always wanted to be in a band, and I'll always remember that. I think being in a band or doing anything creative is priceless, and you can't put a value on it. I always hate it when people have asked me about my past and being in a band and said, did you make any money? Somebody asked me that recently, and I got a little prickly because there's so many bands that are just so great that probably never made any money or didn't make much money. And I always think when people say, did you make any money, it's their way of kind of diminishing you. And I think if you're in a band playing rock and roll, you can't put a value on that. And I know that because here is one of the richest men in the world, and that's all he wanted to do is rock out and play in a band. So next time someone asks me, did you make any money, I'm going to say, no, I made something more valuable. I made music. And I think that's a better answer. So that's my, if I have a message in this video, it's to anybody out there doing anything creative. So what if you still have to have a day job? So what if your creative endeavors don't pay the bills? Just keep doing it. If it's your passion, just keep rocking. Don't stop. Because especially if you're making music and you're in a band, Paul Allen, if he were alive, would love to be doing what you're doing right now. And money has nothing to do with it. So Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you have a good 2025. As I said, keep creating, keep rocking, and don't let people diminish you. And Paul Allen, wherever his spirit is, I hope he's got his guitar, and I hope he's rocking out somewhere. And I'll end the video with a short clip of Paul Allen playing at a Christmas party. It looks like about the time I met him, around 2008. And he's rocking out at a Christmas party and playing his guitar. So Happy New Year. Until the next time, thanks for watching. I'll be seeing you.